Afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the October 21st, 2021 City of Raleigh Commission. My name is Corey Bates and I am Chair of the Commission. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are conducting this meeting using a remote electronic platform, and I would ask for your patience today as we proceed. There may be slight delays as we transition between speakers, participants, and presentations. The Commission is charged to provide guidance, advice, and recommendations regarding the visual quality, aesthetic characteristics of the City of Raleigh. The members of the Commission represent a varied field of expertise and interest in the quality of design in Raleigh. Now I'd like to ask Staff Member Carter Pettibone to briefly explain for the participants how we will be conducting today's meeting. Carter.
Thank you. My name is Carter Pettibone with the Raleigh Planning and Development Department. We'll proceed very similar to a regular meeting with a few minor adjustments. If at any time a participant has issues with the technology, please send a message to the moderator. It's Aaron Morton. The chat function has been disabled for this meeting for all participants and the commission members, except for the ability to message the moderator if you have technical difficulties. For each administrative alternate, a city staff member, myself, will provide a brief introduction and presentation. The applicant will then be acknowledged to present their case and have 10 minutes to do so. Speakers for the applicant are asked to provide their name and address for the record. Following the presentation, the commission members will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and staff. The commission will then hear from any other participants who would like to speak on the request, and we do not have any external speakers on the items. When all comments from the applicant, staff, and other participants are complete, the commission chair will bring the item back to the table for deliberation. Commission members will then deliberate on the item and review the findings listed in the applicable section of the UDO. Following deliberation, the commission chair will ask for a motion, which will take the form of a recommendation to the planning director for action on the request. The motion can be a recommendation for approval with conditions, or denial. The commission may also vote to defer the case to another meeting, typically in order to receive additional information. The commission will then vote on the request. I'm going to turn it back over to the chair for the cases.
Thank you, Carter. We will go ahead and conduct the administrative alternate reviews in order to appear on the agenda. And first up is case AAD 10-21, which was continued from the September 16th meeting. It is, again, AAD 10-21, 320 West South Street. Turn it back to Carter. Give us a quick outline of what we heard last week and then questions.
Thank you, Chair. The intent of the building massing to manage the impact of tall buildings located near the public right-of-way. Step backs are intended to provide access to light and air at street level, mitigate wind impacts, and produce consistent street wall and visually reduce the perceived scale of a building to avoid a canyon effect. The findings, which we'll go over in more detail as we get to the end. In terms of the staff report, Corey did mention this had been with you at 2 meetings ago. They had asked for both a transparency and a building massing alternate. You approved the transparency alternate. You asked the applicant to come back with some strategies to help, I guess, mitigate the some of the building massing issues that you had raised, including kind of the wall, kind of shear wall effect along Dawson Street, and also kind of how the public realm, specifically the what was on their property, could I guess a little more deal or protect pedestrians. So just briefly, the 20-story mixed use downtown mixed use zoning. They have urban limit as a frontage with conditions. The plans indicate some setbacks along the first floor level, along many streets, and also the parking garage to the west is below 8 stories. So I think, unless you have any questions of me, I'm going to hand it over to the applicant, Laurent Ducommermont, to present.
Thank you. Laurent, yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and present, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, everybody. Laurent Ducommermont, principal at J. Davis. So we're coming back today with some design updates for the discussion at the meeting last month. And as Carter said, we focus our design efforts on 2 areas. So one is the ground plane in the areas that are set back from the right-of-way. And another is the massing of the building to focus on the facade planes and volumes and compare them to a by right massing. So the presentation here, you've seen the first 12 slides last month, so I don't know if we should skip through them and just show you for the sake of time, just show you the new slides. But this was what we presented last month. I'm not sure who on the commission was not here, but that's what we had. So those are axonometric views of the building, and street level views, and elevations. And yeah, if you can just stop here, Carter, that'd be great. So this is kind of where we left it last time, and this drawing just highlights in yellow all the area that's beyond the right-of-way, and that we're using as a setback from the right-of-way, for the use of pedestrians. So you'll see that we have some. Essentially, we'll show you some details of what that space looks like, and we have our landscape architect here to describe that. But there are 2 kind of major developments since we presented to you last that are affecting the ground plane. And so if you go to the next slide, Carter, so a couple of things happened. So one is we moved the lobby to the residential tower to the north side. The lobby was at the south side on South Street, and it's now moved to the northeast corner at Lenore and Dawson. So what that allowed us to do was to have all retail on South Street, 3 distinct retail spaces, one under the tower, one under the parking deck, and then one in the 1-story connecting piece. And what we've done is we've actually pulled back the retail in the middle to create this outdoor area for the use of the 3 retail tenants, and which ties in well with the streetscape on South Street, and South Street being the best of the 3 streets here from a pedestrian perspective. And then the other thing that happened is on Dawson Street, we have a very large sidewalk, which is an NCDOT right-of-way. And we've worked with the city of Raleigh to introduce some parallel parking there. As you can see that there's now parallel parking, which has reduced the sidewalk, the width of the sidewalk, which is great. It's moved the street trees closer to the building, and I think for the pedestrian experience, it provides, having cars as a buffer between the busy road and the pedestrians is going to enhance that experience. And then the sidewalk, the scale of the sidewalk in relation to this retail arcade that we created is more proportional. So I'll turn it over to Yvonne, and she can kind of get into more detail on the landscape and hardscape design, and then I'll come back at the end just for the building massing.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yvonne Marr, and as Laura said, I'm the landscape architect at J. Davis working on this project. So he very aptly described what we're seeing here. So if we want to go ahead and go to the next slide, it can take us into a little bit more depth. So this plaza that we're showing now, as he had mentioned, that we pulled back the retail space to create a larger plaza, and it's not just larger for the retail use, but also it's going to be larger for just the general public space. And these little pop-out images are what we're showing that could be done to treat the trees and the hardscapes. We have a lot of different options. We haven't formally decided on one yet with the client, but again, trees in grates, trees in the hardscapes, that looks like it's all continuous paving. But what we wanted to show is that we're trying to create this little pocket park space. And we were required with the public space to provide 3 trees, the public amenity area, excuse me, I think I said that right, 3 trees. And what we've done here, because of this design, is we went ahead and added a 4th. We think it just looks better with the design that we're trying to achieve here. So again, just different options. We don't really know exactly which one we're going to be going with, but we are going to have something very similar to this to break up that hardscape, also to provide some shade there, and also provide our required trees. So if you want to go to the next slide. And so along the streetscape, obviously we have to have our 14-foot City of Raleigh window pane scored concrete sidewalk. We absolutely have to have that. And we, as mentioned, are trying to soften that up by working with NCDOT to get the trees in there as well, and these parallel parking spaces. But we want to just sort of show examples of what we're trying to achieve in this space between the back of curb in that right-of-way space in our building. And so in the upper left little image that you're seeing there, where we have bike racks on the sidewalk. I mean, certainly, we can do City of Raleigh standard bike racks. We can do something else potentially. The next window over is where we have these differentiations in grade between our building and the sidewalk. We want to take some of that up with these walls, but these walls can also be incorporated with planters. So we can bring in vegetative material and soften it up a little bit that way, as well as providing these additional vertical elements that are in there. We do have some ramping that we have to do along the building because of the grade change. We do want to have some wide monument stairs that take you from the space right up against the retail, and this is on the north end, with these kind of you're going to come down maybe about 1 foot, but we're also going to provide handicap accessible access against the building in the form of a ramp. And where that grade change is, we're also going to be putting in some plant material. And that little third, bottom right picture where that's pointing is in there where that ramping is happening with all the plant material in front of it. And then just the bottom left picture is just sort of an image of about how wide that public sidewalk is going to be between the street trees and where we're going to be having our seat walls and any areas where we can pull in plant material to soften up the space. So if you want to go to the next slide. And again, for the plaza area, back to this, we do have a required amount of seating we have to provide for the public amenity space. We can do that in benches, but we're also thinking, we like the idea of seat walls for a number of reasons. Seat walls provide a vertical element to the otherwise rather horizontal plane that we're having out there. They also provide seating, and on top of that, we can soften all that up with these wood bench tops as we're showing pictures. So you can take these seat walls and sort of create this division of space between where the retail areas are. Maybe they'll have little cafe tables where the public right of way and the public sidewalk are. You're not blocking any view to the building. You're not blocking any view to the retail tenants. You're not creating any security issues, but it's just enough of a vertical physical barrier to just feel like I'm in a little bit more of an enclosed space, and it feels a little bit nicer as opposed to being out more of a public space. And it can break up this horizontal plane that we have on. So we're really pursuing a number of seating options in addition to a traditional bench. We will certainly have those as well. We're looking at seating options and table options. You know, we don't know if it's cafe tables or some kind of more of a park seating, but obviously we're going to be having tables and chairs out there as well. And the hardscapes is another thing. We obviously are going to have to play off of the aesthetics of the building. Right now, we're typically showing in our rendering these more gray tone hardscapes because that goes with where we are with the building. But again, those can change. But I just wanted to point out that we can do a variety of hardscapes in different paving patterns, different paving sizes, different paving textures, so that, again, we can create visual interest on the ground plane as we're going through this space. So if you want to hop to the next picture. And this is just a close-up, so we can really show you where all these elements are happening. So as you can kind of go around, we do have our required bike racks. The street trees we're trying to provide on Dawson. And again, we also see the street trees in Lenore and South, so those are going in as well. We have our seat walls and the areas where we can put in the planting beds. And again, I'm showing different types of paver fields. And one of the things I wanted to point out is when we are working with NCDOT, we would like to, if we can have the street trees, we would like to pursue having more areas in the right of way where we can cut out some of that paving, not where the 14 feet of required City of Raleigh sidewalk is, but in other areas where we have more than 14 feet. We'd like to be able to try to cut out more of that paving so we can add more green, and it would be more of a shrubs, grasses, ground covers, something that's not going to interfere with sight lines or something that NCDOT would be upset with. But we are trying to pursue that option as well to soften that up. But again, we want to differentiate right where the right-of-way line is with the paver band designating, you know, the public space and the semi-public private space. And you can go to the next slide so we can just keep looking at the different site features. So again, as we come around the building, continuing with the seat walls, we're not blocking any kind of access to retail. We're not blocking any access to the building, but we are creating these periodic little vertical elements come through to break up the space, tucking in plants wherever we can. And then we have our plaza area. So we would just like to present all this to you all and hear your thoughts. Okay, so I think that's it from me, Laurent, unless people have questions about the hardscapes and the streetscape.
Well, I think we might just go through the whole presentation.
Okay. That's how
yeah.
we own it.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Sure.
So I think we have a couple of street views, and then we can go to the building massing. But essentially, you know, we're trying to strike a balance. Obviously, there's a lot of retail, so, you know, providing access to the retail, but at the same time, you know, having this kind of inviting space, you know, that activates the street. So as you can see in this view, you know, having the parked cars is going to help. You know, the last time we came, the sidewalk, you know, was much wider just because of right of way is so big. And so now the proportion of, you know, the retail arcade and the sidewalk is better. And so you can see the seat wall back there, the landscaping in the foreground, and obviously the street trees. And then we'll treat that ceiling, that soffit, with a nice material. So the next slide, Carter, is again that retail. We're calling it a plaza. It's about 35 feet deep and you know 50 feet wide. 50 or 60 feet wide, but it's, you know, so it has the 4 trees. We are planning on having, you know, some kind of more permanent seat walls in addition to the more flexible seating that the retailers might have. We are, you know, in the process of designing those, you know, with our client. It's always about, you know, striking the balance between, you know, having, you know, permanent seating as well as, you know, providing flexibility for the retailers. and in this case, in a limited amount of space. We worked on the Smoky Hollow development recently, and where we also did the same thing in terms of having some seating walls, and as well as some areas that are more flexible. So of course this is a much smaller area, but we're really excited about how it's gonna connect to South Street and activate South Street. So next, Carter. So building massing. We did some, a lot of calculations, and oh, did it disappear? There it is. So what's on the left is our current design and our current setbacks and stepbacks, and then what's on the right is, the by right scheme, which would, be the entire right of way up to 12 stories, and then a 12-foot step back, and then the remainder of the 20 stories, so the two buildings have the same height. And so what was really interesting to us is that on the right, the by right scheme, taking up the entire length of the block is 183 feet by 126 feet, which is 23,000 square feet. And interestingly, in our scheme, we're right about the same size. It's just that plane is rotated vertically, and then obviously it's 20 feet off the ground. So it's the same surface area. It's just oriented differently, and then lifted off the ground. And then we even looked at the volume of setback and stepbacks compared to the by right. And on the right, you see the step back being 236,000 cubic feet, and we're at 220,000 cubic feet. So very comparable, and except instead of having this entire volume up on the 12th floor, it's all around. So obviously the arcade, and then the south, the south corner, and then the north corner is both an angle as well as the recess, and then of course the step back at the 20th floor. So we thought those graphics might be helpful in kind of evaluating both from a planar perspective as well as volumetrically, kind of in terms of light and air, as well as kind of the scale of the facade plane. So this is for the Dawson Street side, but then the next slide is actually taking the entire building, because a lot of the argument before was obviously how much light and air we have on the other sides than Dawson. And so if you take the entire thing, and again on the right would be by right, where and we looked at the volume of what the volume would be, assuming the same kind of distances on the three streets, if you just extruded everything. And so obviously we have a lot less volume. On the right, the by right is 5 million cubic feet, and we have about 4 million. And then obviously the percentage of void, in the by right scheme is 9% on the right, only 500,000 cubic feet. And then on the left, we have 28% of void. And again, the voids are not just on Dawson Street, enhancing the experience, but also on South Street, as we talked about with that retail plaza, and just having a lot less, a lot more inviting, from a pedestrian perspective in terms of the relation of the building to the streetscape. So I think that concludes our presentation. Actually, one more slide. Yeah, one thing we talked about, which is a concern, is the wind tunnel effect. And so what's peculiar about our site is that right across Dawson Street is, NC Railroad, this little triangular leftover from the train tracks, which, is NC Railroad, so it will not be developed. On the north side, we have this Duke transfer station, substation. So there's no building there. The only, corner that potentially, could be developed is, where the housing authority is, that potentially could be rezoned and have a taller building, but that's the side, that's the shortest side of our tower. That's the skinny part of our tower on that side. So we wanted to address this wind tunnel concern, but so I think this is actually the last slide of the presentation. So we look forward to addressing any questions you might have, and I appreciate the feedback you gave us last month, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laurent. Appreciate that, and appreciate you looking at the comments that we had last time and addressing those. Appreciate that. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant or for staff? I have a few. I guess while you guys are thinking, one question, I guess, for staff and for the applicant. So you'd mentioned moving the entrance to the building, which I don't necessarily see a view of that, but does that change any of our administrative findings, alternate case from last time?
No, so yeah, it's a good question. It's all storefront, like the glazing hasn't changed, in terms of the exterior skin. It's just swapping, so it's all internal in terms of just the internal circulation and swapping the. We might actually have a small retail on the northeast corner, and then the lobby might be tucked behind it. So we're still playing with the program, but in terms of transparency, we're not changing any of that. It's just storefront and doors, and whether there's retail or building entrances, it's kind of all internal to the building.
I do have a question on, let's look at slide 26. I was just curious, the dimensions that are used, I was just looking at the massing, wait till you get there. So that diagram, which I really appreciate these diagrams, the one on the right, which would be per the UDO standards, seems like that step back was taken pretty high up on the building. Do you recall how high up, like how many floors that lower plinth would be before it steps back?
It's at the 12th floor, 12 feet at the 12th floor.
Okay, that was going to be my other question. You're stepping back 12 feet in that diagram?
Are you talking about the by right or ours? The by right.
And Carter, maybe you can chime in on this one. What's the UDO? The UDO's floor or below?
We amended it for new regulations, so by right can go up to 12 stories with a 12-foot step back. It used to be up to 8 stories with a 15-foot step back, but we amended that so it could be 12 stories and 12 feet.
Okay, very good. And then I guess my other question is, and I don't know if this is the best slide to look at or not, but on that northeast corner of the block, I'm curious at the at that corner, how far is that corner set back off of the property line? Kind of the most extreme point of that small angled portion.
You mean within the angled portion, or within, so there's the angle and then there's a further, cut out at the corner there?
Yeah, good question. Within the angled piece.
The angled piece is probably about, I would say, 5 or 6 feet. Of, then it gets back into the, it's about, I think it's an 11-degree angle by that distance. I should have done that math. There's enough numbers on here already, but yeah, it angles 11 degrees, and that's about 2 units, so it's about 50 feet. So
okay, and it's not
whatever that does, 11 degrees over 2 units, and then after that there's a farther 6-foot balcony setback. Okay. So yeah, in terms of, if you're a pedestrian at that corner there, it does provide, if you look at the numbers, a lot more obviously light and air by eroding that corner, by doing both of those things, the angle and the balcony.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I had a quick question about wind, since that's that's included in the findings that we have to look at. you mentioned that the wind impacts would be kind of minimal, just judging by what the adjacent uses are. But did you do any kind of wind studies or have any data to kind of look at what the impacts might be, just knowing that wind doesn't stay in one spot?
We have not had a formal wind study. It's just not part of the process that that we go through typically. But I think that obviously the largest side would be the one most Carter mentioned the canyon effect. So this is just to show that obviously there would not be a canyon effect on Dawson Street because it's only the building's only on one side. But I can see your question is not about just in relation to other buildings. It's just in relation just the building itself. But I think having the shortest side on South Street really helps because that's the most pedestrian street, and so this is a very short facade on South Street there. I mean, not short, like short in in plan. It's tall, but it's skinny.
Right. Yeah, I was mainly concerned about the South Street side, just knowing that the housing development there could be redeveloped into something else.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Adam. Laurent and Yvonne, it seems like, well, first, thank you for coming back to us and really taking a look at the stuff that we asked you to look at. If we can go to one of those slides that shows the streetscape on South Dawson, I appreciate the attempt to kind of reduce the massive width of that sidewalk with the parallel parking. But it sounds like all of that is kind of up in the air and really just depends on DOT saying yes or no. Is there some way we can have any idea what DOT is going to say? Because it kind of, we can look at these pictures and look at the plan, but if none of it's really going to happen, then I feel like it, because DOT says we want X, Y, or Z. So is there some way we can get clarity on what they are going to allow before we move forward with this?
Yeah, I think, I think Ken Thompson is on, but maybe Ken, you can weigh in on, if you can unmute Ken, weigh in on the process for those parallel parking spaces, because that's, I mean, my understanding is that it's pretty much approved by the city of Raleigh. I'm not sure what the process is.
The parking spaces were requested by the city of Raleigh. During the SPR process, we will submit that information over to DOT. DOT did look at the TIA and they did come and they were informed that the city was requesting parallel parking spaces and they had no comments. So us and staff look at it as if it's ready to go, and during SPR they'll sign off on everything. Okay, so did they see the street trees as they were laid out here in this? And is there a potential? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, we have to file for the street tree permit. They're hit or miss over at over by where One Glenwood is, and where Snoopy's is. We had a big battle with them about street trees, and they wanted ones that broke at the ground, and I think we ended up going with some crepe myrtles. But then just a couple blocks down where the new hotel opened, they allowed us to put in full-size street trees. So I would think with the parallel parking spaces here that, the assumption with the cars being there, that we would be allowed to go with real street trees and not have to get something that is, breakable at the ground. I don't know how we define a tree that's breakable at the ground, but
yeah, it does seem like if there's parallel parking, then you don't need a tree that's breakable at the ground. A lot of those precedent images showed an attractive condition where you have planting beds flanking both sides of the 14-foot sidewalk. And I think that could do a lot here to improve the pedestrian condition and provide a little bit more of a buffer from what is a really busy road. And I wonder if that's something that can be included in that South Dawson Street landscape, or at least maybe not all the way down 100% of that streetscape, but in a way that improves the pedestrian experience, both in the right of way and in the proposed amenity area. And if that and those street trees can be confirmed in a way where we actually have confidence that it may happen.
With the permitting phase, I can't commit on the street trees. I can just tell you the two scenarios where we had parallel parking. They allowed us to have the full-size trees. Where we didn't have parallel parking in front of 2 Glenwood, they wanted the breakaway trees. And our intent is when we do their encroachment permit, that at where the 14-foot sidewalk ends on the ends where there's more space, that we would apply to see if we could get some more green space. But we can't commit to that until that process starts.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
It definitely helps with grade. We could just keep the 14-foot sidewalk where the walks are much larger. And we turn the corners because this has sloping grade on Lenore and coming around the corner of Dawson. So having some more green space to try to help accommodate that. I mean, we've all seen where we have a building corner right at the right of way, and we have both sides are sloping down. How hard it is to transition the sidewalk around that corner, and just a little bit of landscaping area can really help with that. And so, that would be part of our request to them. And the reason why we did not show it on the graphics today is because, we're not at that process yet. Again, that's during SPR that we permit all that stuff with NCDOT.
And so the street trees and those planting areas are kind of all in the same bucket. They happen during SPR, but is that correct?
That we showed today are on our property and not in the right of way, because we can commit to that. The street trees, obviously, they're in the right of way, but anything in the graphics you saw today is on our property. So anything we could get extra would be in addition to what we're presenting to you today.
Can you give us an idea of the grade differential, Dawson? South corner there.
Hard time hearing you?
Did you hear that? That just the grade differential from along Dawson Street?
Yeah, Dawson is pretty flat actually.
Correct. Yes, the where the grade transitions real.
It's really on the North Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
And around the corner to Dawson, but once it hits Dawson, 10 foot into the building, it kind of levels out.
Yeah, everything's pretty flat except for Lenore, which has a pretty steep slope. So that's the nice thing about this kind of arcade really ties into that little plaza there, and it's all level.
Could we hop back to that 26 slide? I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. I think these are, for me, maybe the most helpful slides in the whole presentation. So what I'm seeing with the UDO on the right, there's 23,000 square feet of space that would be kind of up on the property line. And on the proposed condition, it's more than that. and the amount of setback is 236,000 cubic feet of space. And on the proposed condition, it's less than that. So I guess maybe in your own words, could you tell me how you guys are justifying that in your minds to help us justify it in our minds?
Sure thing, Chris. Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's extremely close. And I mean, if that's a condition, if we need to just, match those numbers, I mean, obviously we're so close that we can play with the geometry and as far as the 23,000, we can make that match. I mean, we can look at the actual volume of step back, but I think our argument here, Chris, is that the amount of volume that we have on the left is a lot more, usable to the pedestrians. What Carter read at the beginning was about light and air and the pedestrian experience. And so, what we're trying to highlight is that if you're a pedestrian and you're standing at the northeast corner and, you just have this, this sheer plane, this 12-story building coming straight to the ground, you're not benefiting as much from the 236,000 cubic feet that are, 12 stories up. So, I think what it's highlighting is how comparable the volumes and the planes are, but also more importantly that the arcade, the north and south corners, are all very beneficial to the pedestrians. And the step back obviously is beneficial to the residents, having this large area up there. But I think that all those step back areas are just very, they really help with, both the aesthetic as well as the light in there.
Okay. Remind me again how tall that first floor arcade is.
It's a little over 20 feet.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. And also to highlight, Carter, like the other one that is the entire volume, this is just ignoring, the other half of the site is a parking deck, which, is 7 stories. So, the building could, the by right could actually, extend the other 120 feet towards the west for even more, facade. Then you have the 24,000 square foot floor plate, that kicks in. But if you had like a U-shape or horseshoe-shaped building, like you could take up, so you can have even more, obviously mass than what's on the right because we divided the site into the 7-story parking deck and then the tower. So there's a lot of, empty, a void on the west side.
Any other questions for the applicant or for staff before we All right, I understand that there's no other participants signed up to speak. So if there's no other questions, I will close this and bring it back to the table for deliberations and findings. All right, so what do we all think?
I really like that you gave us a lot more definition around what that outdoor space, was going to be. I think, last time there was still very early, and I think they put a lot of definition to it. I really like that arcade area, but I'm having a bit of a hard time sort of reconciling the benefit of that against the, what the UDO requires.
Well, I guess to that's maybe a good discussion point for all of us. So I guess in the strict sense for the UDO, they wouldn't be required to have an arcade there, right? They could build that lowest level all the way out to the property line, which would not benefit the public at all. And so I do think that is a nice move to have a step back or a setback for that first level along that edge.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly improves the pedestrian experience, gets people further away from the busy street. And I guess they didn't choose for that parallel parking, but I think that parallel parking will also help. I don't see this as a really busy streetscape, though. It's kind of the end. It's kind of an island unto its own. But as the city grows, I imagine it'll get a little busier in terms of pedestrian activity.
Yeah.
I think this will be the last of it. I agree with all those comments, and I do appreciate that they've taken the extra effort and given us some nice images to look at. I still feel that it's kind of early on, and there's a lot of potentials and coulds, and kind of, it's not really completely thought out yet. But I get where they're trying to go with it, and I think it will be nice. I agree totally, Chris, that having this step back of being just go straight down to the street with a big massive wall. This is much better for the pedestrian. So I totally agree with that. Which is one thing they're required to do if they don't meet the massing, is to create an area. And they probably could do it in some other way. This is the most logical way to create that kind of public amenity space.
Yep.
And it is a good idea. It is nice to have it along that street and give a little more depth of that between the street and the pedestrian.
Yeah, and I really like the pocket park that's now on that south side. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to, engage both public and residents in that space.
Jake, I'm getting some weird feedback from you. Is everybody else getting weird feedback?
Sounds like a chipmunk.
Yeah.
But not even like an intelligible chipmunk like Alvin, Simon, or Theodore.
Better?
While Jake, oh, there we go. Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. So yeah, just I agree with everyone. I think the direction is going in a really good direction, and I think it's the space in particular looks really strong. I was just going to ask on the other side of the building where the bike racks are and the parallel parking. If you can flip to that slide. Yeah. So I know this isn't as heavy of a pedestrian space necessarily, but something that I've seen in San Francisco, and I think a couple other cities I've been to, is putting the bike racks in a parking space, right? So you get a lot more pedestrian space. You can fit 10 bikes in the space of one car. And it looks like that's about what is pictured here. So I don't know exactly what's required, but I don't know if there's precedence for this in Raleigh or if it's allowable under the current code. But just thinking, since this sidewalk's a little bit tighter, if you can take away one car and put 10 bikes there and open up that space for pedestrians, that might be something to look at on this project and or future projects. But that's just a small idea. But otherwise, I think I agree with what everyone else has said.
Yeah, Jake, I love that idea, and I think it'd be cool to see that around. I think this graphic is actually wrong, unless I'm seeing. If this is South Dawson, they haven't proposed any bike racks on South Dawson, I don't think. And I don't know if they can in the 14-foot sidewalk that the city's requiring, but can anybody confirm that those bike racks are actually in the right place? Because they showed them on the north and south, but I didn't see any on the Dawson side.
I think we might need to go back to that site plan. It's a few slides previous to this. That one. Yeah, it looks like, Ken, I don't know if you can confirm this, if we have to have bike racks on there, because we seem to be showing them in this site plan.
Yeah, in this diagram, it looks like they're on the north and east side, and on the other one, it looked like they were on the south side.
Oh yeah, and they're just like one spaced one by one.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, and that doesn't show the parallel parking. Yeah, that's not showing that. That's an old. That's
right.
an old plan.
This is prior to the parallel parking. This was last. They came before us last time. So they probably just had to relocate them based on bump ins for the parallel.
I think that is what happened. I think when we started proposing the parallel parking spaces, we clustered up the required bike racks to other areas, just so we could meet the bike rack requirement.
Yeah, I wonder if those bike racks could go someplace else too. I mean, I'm just thinking either be relocated or carve out a parking space or whatever it might be. I mean, that image, the rendering that we were looking at before, just thinking about if there's 5 bike racks there and they're full and a car pulls up, whoever's in that passenger seat is not going to be able to open the door without hitting the bikes.
I think that rendering was from prior to the bump in.
Well,
yeah, and I wouldn't want to make bikers go on to South Dawson at all, really. I think most bikers are going to be coming from South Street or Lenore.
Good point.
Yeah, the same thought, because I think we've got bike lanes on, is it on both sides? Or just on the north side?
I think both Lenore and South Street have, South Street has bike lanes and Lenore will have bike lanes soon, because that'll be the main pedestrian connection between Chavis and Orthodics.
Yeah. And are those cutouts on the north side? Sorry if I missed this, but are those, is that also parking, or is that a driveway, or just kind of a bulb, like those 2 cutouts on the north side there?
Those are driveways.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, I think where they're placed here is probably the least bad, away from the driveways and away from Dawson. So maybe this isn't the right project to take over a parking space with, but let's not forget that that's something we may be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said what I have to say. I do like that plaza on South Street. I really hope you're able to get some more green space on these corners where the sidewalk widens out. Hopefully DOT lets you do that. I think that would be a huge improvement.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if it could be a part of what we asked for, I really wish it could be, but I don't think it is. I think it's
out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, we can't do anything. It sounds like they want to do something, but I think several of us on the commission here would really love to see that South Dawson streetscape really as enhanced as possible in terms of landscape.
Sounds like we're coming to a consensus here. Should we go ahead and look at the findings? So the approved alternate meets the intent of the building massing regulations. I think it does when we start looking at setbacks and looking at, we'll skip to number 3. If the approved alternate uses a change in building materials, which really isn't what we're, or if the approved alternate proposes a building setback behind the sidewalk in lieu of a required step back, Resulting open space includes public amenities such as seating areas, trees, landscape. Is what they're showing. 5, the building contains architectural treatments for delineating the base and middle and top. I believe we discussed last time. It does. So those are our findings. Number 2, going back, the approved alternate conforms with the comprehensive plans adopted city plan. So we would just need to go ahead and find some findings, some policies to back that up.
UD 4.6, activated public space.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch. LEU 5.1, reinforcing the urban pattern. LEU 7.4, scale and design of new commercial uses.
DT 7.5, ground level design.
That's
UD 4.1.
That's 6. So yeah, do we have any more discussion? Any motions?
I make a motion to approve as presented.
A motion
second.
from Adam. A second from. Who was the second?
It was me, Marcus.
Marcus. Okay, we have a motion from Adam and a second from Marcus. Any other discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and ask everybody. Everybody's on. Go ahead and raise hands. Everybody in favor? Okay, any opposed? None, so that's unanimous approval. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and good luck with it. Okay, let's roll right into AAD case number 2, which is AAD 15-21, 6129 Glenwood Avenue. We have 3 participants, Tim Carter, Chris Bostic, and Kevin South. Go ahead and turn this over to Carter for a quick overview.
Thank you, Chair. Build 2, the intent to provide a range of building placement that strengthens the street edge along the right-of-way, establishing a sense of enclosure by providing spatial definition adjacent to the street. The building edge can be supplemented by architectural elements and certain tree plantings aligned in a formal rhythm. The harmonious placement of buildings to establish street edge is the principal means by which the character of an area or district is defined. The build-to range is established to accommodate some flexibility in specific site design while maintaining the established street edge. In terms of the findings, of course, it needs to meet the intent of the build-to regulations, conforms with the comprehensive plan, adopted city plans, does not substantially negatively alter the character defining street wall or establish a build-to pattern that is not harmonious with the existing built context. The change in percentage of building that occupies the build-to area or increased setback does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety. And finally, site area that would have otherwise been occupied by buildings is converted to an outdoor amenity area. In terms of the staff report, the applicant is proposing to develop a new restaurant, a 2.2-acre site on the south side of Glenwood Avenue, west of Oak Park Road. Parcel is zoned commercial mixed-use, 3 stories, parking limited frontage. There's currently a restaurant building located on the western portion of the site along Glenwood Avenue. The proposed building would be located to the east, and a location currently used as a parking lot. The 2 bays of parking with a single drive aisle would remain between the existing and proposed building and Glenwood Avenue. And for the primary street frontage, the parking limited designation calls for build-to of 5 foot to 100 feet, 50% of which must be occupied by buildings, the building width. And Glenwood Avenue is, of course, the primary street. And the total lot width, 292.9 feet. Existing building occupies 71.2 feet, with the additional building, 18.5 feet or so. The proposed width would come to about 30%. For the attached plans, the applicant proposes an amenity area that runs almost the entire length of the frontage of Glenwood Avenue, except for the driveway to Glenwood Avenue. And this is more than 10 feet wide, consisting of planted material, some existing and proposed shrubs, but no pedestrian or building amenities are proposed in that area. I'm going to hand off to the applicant in just a second, but I would like to note one change to the plan that came in a couple of days ago, and I did not have a chance to send it out to you, but what's proposed in front of you does have some active amenity area in this area to the north, directly to the building. So I'll let the applicant kind of go over that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carter. Any questions for staff? All right, being none, we'll go ahead and turn it over to who would like to take charge. Tim, Carter?
Yes.
Great.
Good afternoon. Tim Carter, Kimley Horn, civil engineer. With me, Chris Bostic, who's also with Kimley Horn, and Kevin South, who's the property owner. So we are requesting relief from the 50% build-to requirement along Glenwood Avenue so that we can construct the proposed restaurant building within the build-to range to meet the 30% or to get to 30% build-to. And so there is an existing restaurant that is located on the property, located, yes, to the plan west of our proposed restaurant building. And the proposed restaurant is going to be constructed in the parking lot of the existing lot. Due to the building's location on the site and the proposed building size, full compliance with the build-to regulations along Glenwood Avenue can't be met. The intent of the build-to regulations is to strengthen the street edge along the right-of-way and establish a sense of enclosure by providing spatial definition adjacent to the street. This new restaurant is proposed to be constructed within that 100-foot build-to requirement, and but it still maintains the parking aisle that is between the building and Glenwood Avenue to continue to provide cross connection to the neighboring properties. Additionally, the site layout is compliant with the parking limited frontage requirements for the parking locations. Next slide, please. And so a proposed accessible sidewalk pathway from the public right-of-way to the proposed building will increase the pedestrian safety walking from Glenwood Avenue into the site. We're proposing an intense amount of landscaping and street trees, and like Carter said, the outdoor amenity seating area with tables and chairs are proposed between the building and Glenwood Avenue as well. Also shown is that we're going to be constructing a lot more outdoor landscaping and green space areas that are currently existing as parking area today. Next slide, please. So I've included this slide just to show that there is indoor dining area that will be available to public patrons, and they will have the ability to use that indoor dining area. It's not a full kitchen. So the amenity chairs and tables that are additional outside are in addition to the indoor dining area. Next slide, please. So this, and you can zoom in on that top elevation. This elevation is just showing what the building elevations that we've submitted in our ASR submittal to the city. This is the north elevation that will be facing directly towards Glenwood Avenue. So you'll see the glazing, and there will be a door at the front end as well for people to access. Next slide, please. And then these elevations are both of the sides of the building. The top elevation, the east elevation, is where the drive-through will be located, and the bottom elevation is what will be facing the existing restaurant that is currently on the site. Appreciate your time. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Great presentation. Any questions from the commission for the applicant or for staff?
I had one question on that slide, actually, right there. This is Adam. I see the amenity area hatch going all the way around the existing building on 3 sides or half sides, but that's not in any build-to area. So it wouldn't, can somebody talk about why we're calling the back of that Golden Corral amenity area, or if we even need to?
So per the City of Raleigh code, we are required to provide 10% of the site area as amenity area, and what we're showing here is just that amenity area along the back side of the building is ADA accessible, and so that's just what we're showing, that we're meeting that 10% requirement. That amenity area.
Right. Yeah, but the amenity area that we care about is in the build-to area where you're not putting the building, right?
Sure. And so the amenity area in front of our building could quite as easily be called the 10%. It would just be, or it would be added to the 10% that's currently being shown on the plans. So we're showing more than the 10% amenity area there will be, but we're only displaying 10%, meeting the 10% requirement, if that makes sense.
Or maybe you can zoom back in there again so we can kind of understand the amenity and actually access it. So we've got a double drive-through that kind of goes down to a single across there. I appreciate the fact that the amenity area and the interior space, same side of the building facing Glenwood Avenue, it's going to be more active, and it's going to be. And I also appreciate that they're using all that asphalt where there's just way too much parking right now out there.
Yeah.
Utilizing it for a building and activating this area, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and the seating out there, I think, is helpful. It sounds like that wasn't on the plan, but I'm glad it's there. Looks like it's gonna be pretty sunny. There's a couple trees around.
Can you tell us what some of these plantings? I can't really read it from here. What we're thinking of as far as landscaping on Glenwood, and then as well as our little amenity.
There's that row of Styrax japonica, I think, is going to be, I don't think that they're going to do very well out in full sun and the heat. They really don't, they can barely stand it down here in a nice, easy condition, but that full sun, hot pavement area, I can't imagine they're going to do very well.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Chris Bostic. I would just respond that, if there's some suggestions as to alternative species that you'd like to see incorporated, we'd certainly be willing to look at those.
Thank you, Chris.
Martha, you have any input on that? I mean, the tried and trues, probably better than Styrax out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm super familiar with. But of course, I always like to see more native stuff. And I think in this area, it's a little bit of a departure from the Styrax conversation, but just the most amount of canopy shade that we can possibly get, because you're sitting in the middle of a parking lot, obviously. It's going to be very hot, and the building is not tall enough to provide any shade, I don't think, from the south.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you can put canopy trees out along the right of way or the streetscape out there, but certainly the shorter trees like Styrex are going to make it hard to see through that. And I know that in terms of commercial retail, folks want to be able to see the buildings, or the owners would like for folks to be able to see the buildings. I don't know if that's a consideration, and that would allow you to put some canopy trees.
Yeah, and you're right. I think we definitely would have to get, if we did swap, that would be subject to the approval of DOT in this location. So, but I'm sure we could find an alternative.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Again, I understand that there's no person from the sign up to speak.
Correct.
That being said, yeah, if there's no other questions, let's go ahead and close for commission deliberations and findings. Any thoughts? Kind of went ahead of schedule and said that, I think it's a good, I think it's a good thing for this parking lot, actually. I think it's urbanizing it, densifying it, getting rid of all that asphalt, utilizing it in a much better way, and getting some amenity space. They're doing what the comp plan is asking them to do, to get the amenity space, the area that they cannot get to. It seems in line with what's out there now, so it's not something that, it's not like the building is set way back and the existing building is up close to the road or anything. It's all in keeping with what's out there now. I appreciate that. Take the silence as everybody kind of agrees.
I don't have anything to add, Corey. I agree with what you said.
Yeah. I see a bunch of nodding. So let's go ahead, let's go through the findings. So the approved alternate meets the intent of the Build 2 regulations. Approved alternate does not substantially negatively alter the character defining street wall or establish a Build 2 pattern with the existing built context, which I just talked about. The change in percentage of building that occupies the Build 2 area, increased setbacks, does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety. Actually helps what is there now currently. And then the side area that would have otherwise been occupied by building is converted to an outdoor area, which they have done. So go back to 2, the approved alternate conforms with comp plan, adopt the city plans. Substantiate that with some policies.
UD 1.4, maintaining facade lines.
.4, the scale and design of new commercial uses.
Seeing the urban. Right. Do we have a motion?
I think if I'd make a motion to approve if I could add in a condition about the Styrex, basically switch out the Styrex for a as large as can be approved by NCDOT native that is durable and in hot streetscapes. Carter, is that enough information? Martha, do you think that's enough to get something good in there?
Yeah.
I believe I have what you're looking for. Switch the Styrex with as large a tree NCDUT can approve being a native and durable species.
Yeah, thanks.
We might want to say as large mature height or mature size.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's not, we don't want them to put it in large. We want it to get large. So, there's no, good call. Thanks, Martha.
And do we want to add the hot streetscape habitat?
Yeah, durable and streetscapes. There's plenty of lists out there for the southeast for trees that are good on and hot areas. We could, I mean, I could suggest something, but I think that they can do it just as well with these.
I think the city of Raleigh maintains a street tree approved list too.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Would you like to put that in the motion as part of the City of Raleigh approved street tree?
Sure.
Well, I think, yeah,
It would have to be anyways.
Yeah, they got to do that anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that motion is good to go.
We have a second. I will second that motion. Go ahead and ask for hands. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming before us. All right, I want to thank everybody, and now that ends our business portion of today's meeting, and we will continue with working group reports and other business. Just looking here, Carter, to see if we have a quorum for quasi-judicial.
Well, I don't necessarily know if you need a quorum for quasi-judicial matters, but in Catherine, I think we talked about this, and I think we're right now at 7 members. So you do have a quorum to conduct your normal business by your bylaws. What you're going to be looking at will be the proposed membership structure with the regular and alternate members, the rules of procedure, and I can go over kind of the preferences we heard from members about serving additional terms.
That's
Catherine.
fine. I just wanted to confirm with Catherine if we do any kind of voting tonight, would we need the 8-member?
You're good. You can vote on these two things with the membership you have now.
Yeah. All right. So would we like to go ahead and do other business first then, Carter, and go ahead and discuss the member?
Yes, that was our plan to do the membership rules of procedure and talk about this kind of together, but I think I don't know if we'll need separate motions. Catherine, I'll defer to you on that. I do have a presentation if you want to take a look. It's not very long, so.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Go for it.
And Catherine, feel free to interrupt me. So I'm sure a lot of you remember, we've been talking about this for a while, revising the membership structure, essentially to respond to the quasi-judicial role that you are fulfilling now. And what you looked at were non-regular and 6 alternate members. The 3 parts of it were going to be, we need to go back to the UDO or amend the text. The second would be to get a recommendation from you for who's going to be who. And then also change the bylaws to respond to that new role and some changes for the general statutes. So we pulled the members for their preference. We also want to stress that We would need council approval for the membership by your next meeting, which can be done if we bring it to the city council meeting on the 2nd. We also asked about your preference to be reappointed for a 2-year term, because in discussions with city attorney's office and the clerk's office, we want to propose that any member who wants another 2 years added on to their current term can do so, or we recommend so. So we did ask you all kind of what you wanted to do, and it's kind of shown here. You can all see it. Unfortunately, Candace is terming out in December. We can't renew her, but we did hear from you all. A number of you had stated you'd like to be a regular member. We've had some folks that said either. And I think what we're going to do is have you be a regular. If you said either, we're going to hold you to being a regular. And then we've had some members that indicated they'd like to be alternate members. And then also in terms of renewing terms, we've had Catherine and Corey and Chad mentioned that they do not plan to renew when their term is up. And they're actually in the next month. Bernard's term ended in July, but as part of this, we asked the council to hold off on any reappointments or appointments. So I think what we heard, the green being folks that would be regular members, and the orange being the alternate members, and that breaks down to, for regular members, Candace, Corey, Megan, Martha, Will, Patrice, Chris, Marcus, and Adam. And then for alternate members, Catherine, Jake, Corey Mason, Chad, Parker, Bernard, and that vacant position. And I'm sure you'll see that if we go back to the list, there are a number of members that are not renewing. That would really leave us after this action with a number of positions to fill, and would most likely all be alternate. But until you were replaced, you would be able to serve as a member. So that is kind of where we are at with the polling the members and staff's interpretation of that.
Hey, Carter, could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
If we assign regular members and then more people come on to the commission, what is the procedure for toggling people back and forth from regular to alternate? Can someone on the regular say, I don't want to be regular anymore, or somebody that's an alternate that's new that wants to participate more say, I want to be a regular, and then switch? And how long does that take?
I can defer to the folks from the city attorney's office, because I think typically with the Board of Adjustment, with the regular and alternate members, council appoints for alternate members, and when there's a vacancy in the regular membership, they typically elevate someone from the alternate to the regular. But I think if there's a request to be moved, we would need to go back to council to do that.
Yeah, that's right. And this is kind of a weird situation, because normally you have a board that, like Board of Adjustment, that has regular and alternate, and you're always regular alternate no matter what the board's doing. But for Appearance Commission, this is really just for quasi-judicial voting purposes, that you have the regular and alternate. So, and then you all are regular for everything else. So the way we're thinking about doing this is that if you guys have it vote on a recommended list of who would be regular and alternate, take that to council and have them approve that. It would take council action to change that regular alternate. As Corey mentioned, as Carter mentioned, typically if there's a vacancy on a regular, a current alternate member would be asked if they wanted to move up and be on the regular spot. But if somebody is, decides that being a regular member is not something they can do, then I think we could probably go to council and ask them to change the composition that way as well. But I've actually never seen it happen that way. I've always seen it where somebody wants to become a regular member when there's a vacancy. So it's not something that we can figure it out when it happens. But it would need to go to council though for their approval.
Carter, on that list, is there, other than Candace, is there anybody who's not going to be renewing their term that's on that regular list?
No, Catherine and Corey and Chad did mention that they do not plan to renew. And Catherine and Corey told me they wanted to be alternate. Chad did not respond to that. That's why it's blank. And then Bernard did not respond either. So that is, kind of how we heard it. We looked at the regulars or personally people who said either to be, being that role. That's we want to check with you too. Yeah.
It actually worked out where 9 of you either said regular or either, and 9 is our magic number we need. So that's kind of how that fell in.
Do we know if there's any other candidates in the hopper that the council can consider for filling vacant spots?
The council maintains a list of, or the clerk's office maintains a list of people who have expressed interest. The next step would be to that person to get, 5 votes from council, and then they could be placed on there. What we're planning to come to council with is all at once and say, here you go. 3 members don't want to renew. I'm not sure about Bernard yet. And here's a recommendation for regular and alternate, and here's a recommendation for extending terms. And then as vacancies open up, they would take the next vacant position. And I guess in this case, looking at the numbers, they would look at I guess Candace's spot next. Or no, I guess if the dates are earlier, they would probably look at Catherine's, Chad's, and Corey's. I think they usually use that. So.
Yeah, because we've got 5 spots that are about to be vacant.
And Chris, when Corey and I talked with our council representative, she did say, that if there are types of people or professions that we need on the board or on the commission, that we can certainly say that to someone. Not that means it's going to be a perfect situation every time, but, to me, I think it's really important to have, certain people, certain professions on the commission. So I think we do need to think about, I don't know, Carter, if, as part of this report or whatever that we take to council, we need to say, we're losing another architect, or we want to fill it with a civil engineer, or, how we want to get those points across.
Yes, and that's something that the clerk's office has been reaching out to staff for, and we've used that, and we'd be happy to mention that we'd be losing 2 architects with that, so that's definitely a position that we'd be looking to fill. But we looked at the numbers and this would meet the over 50% requirement of the the UDO and the state statutes require of the membership for the 9 and the 6. But I think in terms of a separate action for additional members, that would need to be at another council meeting, because I don't think they have anybody queued up, or we've told them to basically to hold. So that's something we can give them a message to as well after this.
Okay. Yeah, because that other vacant position was William Dodge, although he's not an architect. He just plays one on TV.
I can briefly talk about the rules of procedure. Current bylaws last revised in January 2013. We're looking again to look with your quasi-judicial role in compliance with the state statutes. The rules of procedure would actually replace the bylaws, so bylaws would go away. And then again, we would recommend if the commission would make a recommendation to remove the bylaws and put the rules of procedure in place. And I'm happy to walk through them, myself or Catherine.
Yeah, and if you guys get a chance to look at them, I mean, rules of procedure is what they're called now. So it's just kind of updating the language to be in line with what everything else is called when you're a zoning related board. Our goal was to make them as simple as possible. And then if you guys have anything specific that you want to add to them, we most certainly can do that and talk about that. But what we have here is just a really basic set of rules of procedure for you all. When you guys act in your advisory function, your rules of procedure help you, guide you in your actions. But when you act in your quasi-judicial function, you actually have to abide by them, and it's a reason to, procedural reason to potentially overturn a decision is if you don't comply with your own rules of procedure in making those decisions. That's a North Carolina Supreme Court case that said that. So that's why we wanted to make these as just really cookie cutter as possible. So that there's nothing extra in here. But again, if you guys have anything additional that you want to add in, feel free to, or anything that you like from your old bylaws that you want to carry over, that can be done.
I had a couple questions on these. Under Part 3 for the membership, under the advisory and other duties, it says for all other non-quasi-judicial matters, all 15 members of the commission shall sit as regular members. Before we took on the quasi-judicial matters, we had talked about getting more involved with like high visibility, high impact, maybe even having a group that could look at projects, while they were early on in design concepts, so that we had a chance to meet with them and give them input before they get too far along with design and come to us and, we feel bad because they're so far along in design, but they really don't meet the intent of the comp plan. If we had these alternate members, or we will have these alternate members that can still act in these advisory roles, is there any conflict of interest, or can they still perform all of those advisory functions if they were to see some projects early on in concept and then come to us later on for advisory stuff?
So there would be a potential conflict of interest. So I think of it in terms of voting. An alternate member can still participate in the hearing, deliberate, ask questions, all of that. It just comes down to whose vote counts when you're voting to approve or deny a request. So, and then they also can step into the role of a regular member when that regular member is out. So any communication with them regarding a quasi-judicial matter that's coming before the commission, whether they sit as a regular or an alternate, if they have communication outside of that hearing with the applicant or otherwise, it would be considered ex parte communication, which is a violation of due process. So that member would have to disclose that and be excused from voting. I don't think if it happens occasionally, that happens, but I don't think it'd be a good idea to make it as a routine practice for alternate members to hear matters that they would have to be excused from because of ex parte communication.
Heather, what if it was just 3 of the 6 alternate members that at any one point were, looking at something? So there were always 3 other alternate members that could fill in for regular members later on for that, the project that would have ex parte communication with the other 3.
Yeah, it's something that I have never seen done where active current members of a board form a subset or subcommittee to review projects before they go forward for a QJ. I have never seen that with an active board. I've seen it in some circumstances where maybe prior board members who have rolled off kind of form like this informal, helpful committee. But even that can kind of get a little bit slippery if it starts to become something that's expected, and the communication between the members starts to happen. So it's something that I would not recommend to be a regular practice for current members.
Okay.
One example could be that if in your advisory role, one, I guess, goal is to be more involved in area plans and quarter plans. So if you were looking at those, you'd be looking at those in an advisory capacity. And, I don't think you'd be looking at a conflict because you're looking at an area plan or a quarter plan, and something pops on from that quarter that's a resolution matter. I don't think we're looking at the same sort of thing. But that would be one example of you serving in an advisory capacity would be to comment on plans from the city.
Yeah, you just can't kind of like pre-screen an application that's coming before you.
Okay. A couple other questions under the Part 5 meetings for the quorum. It's talking about a third. I'm assuming it's a third of our 15 members, meaning we would need 5 for a quorum. Is that true?
Yes, we kept that the same from the current bylaws. It currently says 1/3. So.
Okay. And then up under the officers, under the chair, is there anything special about September 1st?
That's what you had in there before, but this is your chance to move it if you want to.
Well, I was just thinking, I know Corey's kind of overdue for being replaced, and whenever that may happen, does it make sense for this to be more like a 1-year term from whenever that person takes over versus having it on a specific date?
It's up to y'all. That's fine. I guess you just have to have, you already have somebody established. So really, yeah, you could take that out and somebody just needs to keep track of when that 1 year's going to expire and let the commission know to vote ahead of that. That's fine if y'all want to do that.
What does everybody else think of that? I'm just thinking like if March next year, we finally find somebody that wants to take over for Corey. Is Corey cringing? I can't see his face.
Please.
But if it's March next year, then we've got a new chair that's only going to be there for 6 months or 5 months.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's going to make it simpler to just say, just to take that out. And it's not really. It just makes it more complicated, honestly.
I like that as well because the whoever is in that role being in a year will be part of all the events, right? So there's a time where we talk to council in the spring. There's the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards. There's different things that happen throughout the year. It would be good for somebody to have a true full year as being chair.
So does anybody have an issue with, I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit, like the chair and the vice chair not being elected at the same time?
This is David York, with many
Lost you.
We lost you, David.
Yeah.
I think that what he probably was going to say is that a lot of times they run concurrent.
the other board have spot in time.
David, we lost you when you were talking for a little bit. Can you recap that again? I don't know if we haven't, but I think, I mean, most places do, or most boards run them at the same time. You do election of officers at the same time. There's not really I guess you can do it however you want to do it. Really, the idea is that the chair runs the meeting and the vice chair can step in for the chair when the chair is not there. So it makes sense for them to run concurrent. But I guess it doesn't have to be that way.
I agree with that. I think, if I would have been thinking I took over as chair, I think it probably would have made more sense for Candace to take over as chair and vice chair, so I could kind of be there for a year and kind of get the feel of it, and then kind of have the chance to move into that chair position. Fortunately, the way this is, yeah, I did it backwards, and now her time is up, unfortunately, because she would make a much better chair. But yeah, I think having it together makes a lot of sense. And I think that's why you see it in most jurisdictions.
Yeah. So what happens if we've got a window of time where Candace has rolled off and we don't have a vice chair and Corey can't perform the chair duties? You guys just pick an alternate?
The chair would just need to designate somebody to act in his or her place.
Okay.
We've had that happen in the past. Yeah.
That happens.
Okay. Yeah.
So I agree. I do like having the chair and the vice chair concurrent, elected at the same time.
Catherine, do you ever see, like, let's use the same example, Corey, somebody really wants to be chair in March. So Corey steps down from chair and there's like a footnote or something where they need to serve in the chair position at least a year. So maybe they would serve a year, in 3 months. I guess all that just kind of screws up every election coming after it.
If somebody wants to step down before a year, I think they can do that. Okay. The way it's written is that you serve for 1 year or until the successor is elected. So if your successor is elected early or later, I think that's fine. I think it's meant to give you some flexibility.
Catherine, I was going to ask if you're familiar with what the BOA or the Planning Commission does on their officers. I've been struggling to find those on the network.
Yeah, they elect both at the same time once a year. I think theirs might be in July or August. I can't remember. They just did it recently. But yeah. And that's where too, I'll have my another set of rules of procedure that we drafted from Asheville's BOA that I used as well. And we have in there the same language that you have elections beginning in July of each year for that board. So normally there's a date. I mean, the date really is just kind of a reminder too to everybody that that 1 year term's coming up. The alternative is just for a staff person or the commission to keep track of when that 1 year's coming up.
Yeah, I just found the Planning Commission. They do it the first meeting in July, but it's very similar. Serve a 1 year term, and then the vice chairperson steps in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does say in here, the chair shall be eligible for re-election. So I guess if like Corey were to step down in March and the chair didn't serve a full year, the commission could re-elect that chair for the next year. And then you'd be back on schedule.
I could go either way. Whatever you guys think is clean.
It does say too, if you get down to election of officers, number 3, the last sentence, in the event of a vacancy, it shall be filled at an election at the next regular meeting following the vacancy. I think that's intended to cover that situation too, where somebody wants to step down early.
And we've had elections where the the commission knew that the chair wasn't going to fulfill the whole year, like Brandy, when she did it. So I think that's, you know, yeah.
So we can still do what we're talking about and take out the August and September language in those, right?
Yeah, you could take it out if you want. I also think, you're not bound by those dates. Those are really just kind of just in there for reminders almost. So, I mean, you can reappoint, somebody can step down throughout the year without being bound by those months. So I think the same outcome can happen either way. It's really up to you all.
But what we are saying is, if the chair or vice chair finishes or steps down, then both of those positions open to reelection so that they stay at the same, basically along at the same time.
Yep, that would work.
Makes sense.
All right, so what did we decide? Catherine, what did we decide?
I can't really tell.
I think to me, it's like, do you want to have that September 1 date in, or do you want to move that to a different date? But
Yeah, I think what y'all are talking about is just striking that September 1st.
At the beach.
Yeah.
you're cutting out again, David.
I think he's here. I think what we could do to make that happen would be to say in the first paragraph, so the term of office shall be 1 year and/or until his or her successor is elected. Stop. So put a period there. Delete the rest. And then in 3, that first sentence, just say the nomination and election shall occur during, and we could say a regular meeting of the commission.
I like it. That's thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, that works.
I like that too. Good with the rest of it.
Yep,
One thing you might notice too with the election is that the nomination committee language isn't in there anymore. So if that's something you really like, but I mean, most places don't really do that. Most commissions, you can if you want, but you can also just nominate and elect at the table.
I certainly appreciate having some time to think about it and have everybody be able to go away and come back and have thought about it. I don't know. It seems like there could be pressure if it's like, all right, we have to figure this out right now. But maybe that's actually good pressure.
Well, it does say that in the event of a vacancy, it should be filled at the next regular meeting. So you will have a 1 month heads up that there's a vacancy. Assuming they don't vacate like the day before.
Yeah. Carter, I feel like you probably have the most insight on this. You've been around and seen this happen so many times. Or Candace.
I don't think we've had anybody that's just bugged out. we knew in advance people were leaving. You did mention that what happens if there's not a chair and vice chair. What's typically happened is if one of those officers is not there and the other one is conflicted, then we ask someone else to kind of step in for that. That's typically the only time it's happened. I don't think I've been here in my 6 years that both the chair and the vice chair didn't attend. It's just generally been if one of them's there and they're conflicted that we ask another person. But generally we've not had, contested elections or issues of people just saying I'm done and leaving. It's generally been pretty smooth. I think if you have the flexibility in there that like you propose, I think that really takes care of your concerns and it gives you the flexibility to have elections next month or at the beginning of the year. Then I think it's just that, yeah.
Is there any action that we need to take on this? Any voting or anything like that?
Yeah, so here's what we were thinking. So city council under the city's code has to give the final approval of any rules of procedure. So as Carter mentioned, that council meeting November 2nd is the next meeting that's before your November 4th meeting when you start doing QJ. So we are prepared if you guys wanted to vote tonight to on both who you recommend being your regular and alternate for QJ and your recommended rules of procedure. And we can transmit those to council. And we have it set where they can go on the consent agenda for council to approve that in time before your November 4th meeting. So if you guys are okay with the list and the rules with the amendment that we discussed, then you guys could vote on that tonight.
I am good with the list. Any other feedback or comments from anybody on the commission with the list?
Catherine, for the rules, I know this is not the list, Corey, but for the rules, like if we did want to make a change, it would just have to be back in front of council, right? Like if we thought, oh my God, this is not working for us or something.
Right. Yeah, you can. And again, these are really cookie cutter. I hope. I hope there shouldn't cause any problems for you. It really is if you wanted to add something more particular or unique to you, all that to your rules. The goal is to not prevent you from doing anything. I think the less you put in there, the better.
All right. I'm going to move that list as we saw earlier. Think of the word. I'm getting. I'm gonna say that the list, as we noticed before, we saw before, we approve it as presented before.
I'll second that.
Any conversation? Seeing none, let's just do a raise of hands really quick. All in favor? So that's unanimous. And I'll say the third, or can you put those bylaws back up?
Corey, while Adam's on the phone, we should just elect him as the new chair and take a vote, and we all raise our hands, and he would probably raise his hand too.
Let's do it.
All right, that got me off the phone.
Damn it, he came back right at the right time.
So I would like to move that we adopt the Raleigh Appearance Commission rules and procedures as outlined, with the exception of that Catherine Hill so eloquently put before us, changing the date, removing the date, right? And I don't remember exactly what you stated there, but liked it when you did state it.
Yeah, we have it written down. We stated earlier.
I'll second.
Okay, second. Do you have any further conversation about that? Thoughts, comments? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Yeah, I was waiting for you, Martha. It's good. All right, so that unanimous, that's approved. All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate all the hard work on this and to get this all put in front of us in a timely. So that'd be great to get that in front of the commission, in front of the council. Next meeting. Are there any other parts of that other business that has to do with that we need to review, Carter? Or
Just for my own sake, how many folks do we need at a quasi judicial meeting once this goes through? We have 9 regular members. We need 6 of them. Is that right?
So you're gonna need the majority of 9, which would be 5.
Oh.
So any vacancies don't count towards that, but it's like for when Candace, if that becomes a vacancy of a regular member, well, we have enough alternates, somebody should step in. But yeah, no, it will bring it down to you should never need more than 5 to approve.
I think what we'll have to figure out is how we go about getting the alternate if somebody can't make it to you. Who's next in line, making sure that everybody gets a chance to have that opportunity if they want it.
The way the BOA does it is, so alternates should attend the meeting too, because it can happen that a regular member realizes once the hearing starts that they are business partners with whatever, and they have to drop out. So alternates should always be there to fill in if they can. But the way it works at BOA is if we know whenever someone steps out, the BOA chair announces who's going to fill in. So.
Be nice, yeah, to kind of have a list and see who has already done it. You know, give everybody an opportunity so you're not just kind of sticking with the same person every time. Okay. There's no other business. There's no minutes to approve. We did that last time, so let's go to working group. Any reports? It's just Sir Walter, right, Carter?
Well, I'll just give you a little update on the legacy project. I think we'll need to push that back to November to talk about that. But in terms of the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards, as part of the poll that I sent out about membership, I also asked about folks' preference for doing it in person versus online, virtual. The responses I got back were generally in person or either. And then in terms of being involved or participating, most said they were okay with it. A few said they weren't sure. And I did a couple folks I didn't get a response from. So that's generally what we've seen. Another question was, is the mayor available to be and willing to be at? I've reached out to her staff. I've not heard back yet. For that, we do have a location and some potential dates, that being Raleigh Union Station, December 14th and 15th are kind of our target dates. That's a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And it's pretty much as far as we can push it being in this year. But I think we are really down to crunch time to determine if we want to pursue the in-person event or we just want to say we're going for virtual. And I think what we want to do is have the commission's kind of blessing to go one or the other, and then kind of move in that direction. I did talk to an AV consultant, so we have availability definitely to have sound at that event. I think in terms of catering, that's probably something we can do as closer to the event. But did want to discuss it with you. It seems like the majority are comfortable having an in-person event. Who knows what's going to happen in close to 2 months. But if you want to discuss it now, make a decision. We're happy to, staff's happy to respond.
Carter, what's the target date again?
December 14th and 15th are 2 of the dates we looked at. They are available at the Union Station.
Gotcha.
Hey, Carter, did you ever figure out if we can do a vaccine required event?
I did not get that far. I wanted to the advice I was given was to see exactly or find out what you guys want to do. and then go forward with that kind of, can we do that? So that's kind of
the, to like vote on it. I mean, it sounded like the poll made it pretty clear. Is there? Do you want to just like talk about it for a second with everybody here?
I mean, I'd like to get a direction. If you want to vote on it, that's fine. You have 7, I think, still here. It's a direction we can go in. I'm also at the point that the jury is met. They made their choices. We went to council. Council confirmed those choices. So I'm at a point where I need to let the applicant or the winners and non-winners know. I'm okay saying that we're not determined yet. That's just something that they probably would expect that we might not exactly know. But it'd be nice to be able to tell them, hey, we're looking at an in-person event, but always be aware that it could switch to virtual very easily.
Yeah, well, knowing that it sounds like from the poll, most people wanted an in-person event. Is there anybody that wants to talk about not having it in person?
I would just say I think there's a lot of nuance with all planning anything right now, right? So it's not, to me, it's not just in person versus not. It's like how many people, vaccination, like what's the setup, like how can we do it in a safe way, based on everything we know now. And I think it could be reasonable to think about it a little bit in a sort of hybrid way. Like if we think about the last event, I don't know, there's probably 200 people there. Which feels like, I don't know, maybe that's a little too big, but if we could say, each of the winners can send a rep or 2 or whatever that is, and then we've got ourselves, and whatever other capacity limits, like maybe we limit it to 60 or 70, and it's just whoever first come first served, and you have to register or something like that. I know before we haven't really required anything like that, but I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, but it just seems like if we can televise and broadcast the event and have people able to attend virtually as well, then we can make it kind of like a hybrid approach, but with the benefits of having at least the award winners and the presenters there in person. So I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, but anyone else have thoughts on that?
Well, it seems like it would be.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Corey.
I was just going to say that, one, I appreciate that, those comments, and I'm kind of 50-50. Personally, I'm not going to events as much as I was, unless I need to, so I wonder I don't know that we're going to get as much participation as we have in the past. I think that this is an award ceremony, but I think it's every bit, if not more, of a marketing thing for people. So I think if you start limiting who can come or not, I think that's going to I don't know. That'll be interesting to see what people think. But I think it would be interesting just to poll the people as well and see if they would even be willing to come. My other question, I guess, for Carter is there any liability? Are there any other people, does anybody have to give us a permission to have this event, or can we just have it as a city? Is there any liability, or, becoming a super spreader event or something, and then all of a sudden we're liable for something? I'm just wondering out loud here.
Definitely understand the concern, and this is kind of like the first step. In talking to some of my colleagues, they wanted to determine if the Parents Commission wanted to proceed with it at some sort of in-person event before we kind of go forward. So that was just kind of the first step. I was going to next go up, and if we hear, hey, no, commissions can't do this, then there's an answer. But we wanted to be able to go with a kind of a consensus or a direction that you want. And talking to the staff for the Environmental Advisory Board, they're doing an in-person event, but I believe it's going to be outside in a very small event. But their main award, they're going to actually do at a city council meeting. So I think that kind of a hybrid event. it's a hybrid solution. So I think I just wanted to get kind of a sense from the commission how we wanted to proceed before I moved it forward, and wanted to get a couple things lined up as potential, including the AV and the mayor, to see. Because the way I posed it to their staff was saying, would the mayor participate, be comfortable? If the commission wants to do it in person, if they want to do it virtually, can you contribute, a presentation? So, like I said, I've not heard back, but I wanted to kind of get that conversation going.
Certainly, there's been large events hosted, masked inside by the city. So there's definitely precedence for that. On Dorothea Dix at All Souls, I was at that one, and that's a city event. And it seemed pretty well run. I kind of feel like it sure would make me feel better if it was, vaccine checked, but I just don't even know if that's a thing. I wouldn't, if I felt like I knew folks around me had been vaccinated, looking at the numbers and the trajectory of the numbers, it seems relatively reasonable to say that seems like a somewhat safe event.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be easier to move forward with planning for an in-person event, and in a worst case have to switch to a virtual than planning for a virtual and saying 2 weeks out, no, maybe we could pull this off, in person.
Yeah, having a contingency seems good either way, because we're gonna have a virtual component either way, right? Like we'll need to, if it's in person, we've got to broadcast it, etc. And I think just having a plan B, like let's be optimistic and say cases are going to be low, and we'll and we can make a plan to do it safely. But if we get 2-3 weeks out and cases are back up again like they were last year in winter, we can find a way to make it still feel special. Like last year everything was recorded, and I think we could have a way to do it live and send care packages or something out to the winner. I mean, we did like for our company sort of holiday party last year, we did a remote dinner, and we all could order what we want from the same restaurant. I don't know. So there's like ways where we can make it feel a little bit like it has in the past in person. Hopefully, if we have to go to the plan B, but I think we got a plan for a little bit of both, regardless.
Jake, you had a good point, and I thought about this in the shower the other day. Even if we have this event and say it's live, there might be some groups that don't want to come, that want to, just say, we'll record something and you can play it and that's it. And one thing we would need to do, I think, would be to get a sense from the people, what's the head count, just to give us a sense for not only catering, but to kind of plan for the event. So that we'll need to do it a little differently, definitely. But we'll need to get more information up front, and then also give them a reality check that, hey, 2 weeks from it happening, it could go virtual. We had an event a few years ago, weather related. We had to push it off a month or so, and that we had to make that decision that day. So that's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Is it possible to have something outside? I mean, we have that giant, expansive open space facing the Dillon. I guess I'm a little concerned about getting that many people in a room and asking them to take off their masks and eat and drink. I feel like it would be different if food and drink weren't involved, but just my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's a good point. Also, the plaza outside Union Station has had some really good events recently. That's what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think there was a pop-up, working event that the Downtown Raleigh Alliance has held there, and there's been a bunch of other stuff there that we could probably learn from what they've done for our planning.
I wonder if we could do something like that where it's almost just like a stop by and see the award winners or something. I don't know, where it's not like everybody's there all at once. And if we do it outside, we could do, like cider and hot chocolate with, you know, the bar or something, just to give people, I mean, it's going to be cold, so you got to convince people to stay out there. But I mean, we've seen people do that too. I mean, I wouldn't mind an outdoor in that space. That's a great space.
Yeah, I wonder if we could move it up if it was outdoors.
There's potential to move it up. I think getting all the mechanics and things done. You know, if we were to move it up into November, we might not actually have awards to give out a certificate. So that might be like, we'll have to get to you later. But yeah, that definitely the date being outside could be, you know, hit or miss.
Sorry if I missed this, but do we have a date when we're switching to the alternate and regular member setup? Or is it, we still need council approval, right?
Council would need to approve that at the meeting on the 2nd, and then we would be ready to go for the meeting on the 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking if I'm in the alternate role and I don't have to attend the quasi-judicial meeting, I could spend some of that time on event planning, if that would be helpful for folks.
That'd be great. I mean, our communications folks have volunteered to work on the party planning, and you know, I think I could probably go back and say we want to think outside the box, outside the building if we can, with some ideas. You know, it seems like there's a desire to have some sort of in-person component to it, but also have a virtual. And I think we understand that even if it was an event, we might not have very good attendance just because of the crowd. So if you want me to kind of go back with that, we could start working on that. But yeah, I think in talking to our communications folks, we thought we're going to need to work on some parallel tracks. But I wanted to try to get a sense about the direction.
I like the idea of an outdoor event too, but that time of year, I don't know what the lighting is like at night and if we can get portable lights. I'm worried that it might be a dark space in the evening, and maybe we can move it up and do like a lunchtime event or something like that while it's warmer and lighter out. And then I guess we'd also have to have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And plan A would be outdoor, plan B would be indoor, and plan C would be totally virtual. In case the weather's crummy that day.
That might be hard to do if we know that, I mean, we're going to have, like Jake said, some kind of a virtual quality portion of it. So, and that outside versus inside could be different. It's out of my realm, but
that's outside my
wheelhouse. The idea
wheelhouse.
of outside as well. Even if we had some portable heaters or something out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you put bourbon in the cider, it acts like a space heater. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. Yeah, I gotta jump off, but is there anything that we need to vote on, or just reach out, Carter, if there are next steps for me on helping out? But
Well, thank you. I think what I'm hearing, and it might be good to maybe schedule just a separate meeting to talk about it and see if we can get our communications folks there and put some heads together. We are going to look at the submissions for the certificate design, and then come to the whole commission hopefully on that first meeting in November for a finalist. So it might be good to just schedule a separate meeting to kind of talk about some ideas from what we heard. If that's the direction, I'll look for a date and put the invite out to everyone.
Cool. That works.
Carter, is the window closed for the certificate submission? Or
No, tomorrow. Definitely. If you know people, send them our way by tomorrow. You look on the site, Sir Walter Raleigh. It's essentially submit your work, resume, and then the group will look at those, select 3, and then take that to the full commission to select some. Or actually, once we have 3, we're going to ask them to do sketches and concepts. And we're going to bring that to the commission to look at.
And how many have we gotten so far?
I've gotten 4. So what a wide variety range. I think last year we ended up only getting 1, but we decided it was one we wanted to go with. I've reached out back to past applicants and past winners to let them know and to encourage them to go for it this year. Fortunately, myself, I haven't been able to do as much marketing, but we've asked the arts folks and the communications folks, and I think that's led to some. Hopefully, we're going to get a flood tomorrow.
Great.
If that's a correction you're okay with,
do we have minutes to approve or anything like that?
No minutes, because we had stacked 2 quasi-judicial meetings in a row and had approved both of them. So the next minutes will come at your November 2nd or November 4th meeting.
Right. I think that's it. Carter, sounds like you have some direction there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know if I need to help out in any way.
Okay.
Appreciate everybody being here tonight, and there's good feedback on those projects. Struggling with one of them, but I thought they both ended up good. I think we had good feedback and hope those projects be a little better. So appreciate that. Appreciate everybody's time.
Good to see y'all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.